We came into the barn today to do a little bit of work. Amy came into the barn today to do a little work. Now, a little more good luck yesterday is the kids are allowed back on the backstretch at Northfield Park. For the last year, due to COVID, they weren't allowed. We were hopeful, but obviously we're Canadians in the U.S., right? I guess most of what happens currently falls under beggars can't be choosers. So, when I'd arrived, I had made it known that we do have our kids. It's kind of an issue, and I don't know if that played a role or not, but I know that they allowed them back on. So whoever got that done, thank you very much. If you're watching this, I was pretty pumped to hear the news yesterday. So the kids came with us today. They were looking at the goat, Frankie the goat, that's over here, looking at the horses, and it was good for us. So we're going to talk about the aged horses. They're racing in a number of places right now. Obviously, a lot of these lists are changes. I have to go home and change all Jason's barn, change everybody's barn around. But it's the time of year, so we'll get right to it. Brave World raced good last night. Finished fourth. Somebody said, I don't know if he raced that good. He raced fine. If you're fourth over on a flat half-mile track in with legitimately okay horses, good luck to you. If you're not a layover, you're not getting there, not unless the front end collapses, and that was the opposite of what happened. The horse on the front end went the route and looked good. Brave World was fourth over, closed up, finished fourth, was close for second, raced well, needs to draw the inside and get a chance to race like anybody else on a half-mile track. So Brave World raced well last night at Northville Downs. Compass Rose DC is going to school a little bit. She's going to need a couple schoolers, a couple of qualifiers. Then we'll put her somewhere. We'll find a spot for her. Should be lots of racing throughout the summer, whether it be she comes on the road, maybe races at Scioto the odd time, does some racing here. We always have the option of the Meadows. And now that I'm talking out loud about it, we've been threatening to send horses at different places. I would suspect she trotting 55 over Plain Ridge, where they go for about $14,000. So we got a good filly, a good mare, a good 4-year-old season ahead of her. I think it's in the mix. Don't send me a ton of emails asking me, does that mean Compass Road? Does that mean I may be threw a little worry into people last week when I had spoke about moving some horses to Massachusetts. Linda and Wendy got inundated with people requests for licensing. So you can see by the way we're doing things here, we're trying to find the best spot, and things change daily. When I go home and try and look at everything from every angle and say, okay, what is best for us? Where do we need to be? Where could we be? Does that make sense? Massachusetts did, because I had it in my head likely June 15th. If it's still June 15th, then the Massachusetts would be a good option. But right now we're seeing the cases in Ontario start to come down incrementally. Still people in the ICU. I'm reading the news again today. Still people in the ICU, but the overall cases are coming down. We're only at April 25th. It's realistic to think that by May 20th, the cases should be down low enough, under control, and enough people vaccinated where the government can feel comfortable to maybe open up Ontario a little bit more. And I would think that Woodbine Mohawk Park would be one of the first industries opened up. So having said that, doesn't make much sense uprooting Ontario bred horses to come to the US to try and get some fitness into them, some heavy lifting into them, only to ship back. To come to Northfield Park, it's a graveyard of 3-year-olds. It's a tough place to make money. I wouldn't recommend Ohio. Pennsylvania's hit and miss. Can't get in because they're Pennsylvania owned or bred for the most part. Non-winners of 3 classes aren't. I've done the homework. Non-winners of 3 classes aren't segregated by PA owned or bred, but they rock, and they do everywhere. So are we going to bring them over here? Do we have enough time to educate them without hurting them? That's a slippery slope, and not one that I want to really traverse, to be honest. I want to keep our horses safe and have them ready to go at the proper time frame, but at the same time, make sure that we're not taking too much out of the tank for the rest of the year. We do have stakes in Ontario coming up, regardless of when they start. They will be a full slated stake program So that's where we're at with those horses. I think you guys know that. When it comes to, it's a long path we just went down for Compass Rose DC, but when it comes to Compass Rose DC, might be worth a look also. So we'll see. Cavill Hanover finished second the other day. I like what I see from Cavill Hanover. He's been doing his work well. Here's a horse that does everything right. And continues to look good. Hi. Shouldn't that burn there? Yep. Cavill Hanover continues to do things right, finishing second the other day at Philadelphia. Now, I'd be remiss if I said maybe something a little missing from the winter time when he was racing really, really well, but that's racing. So, Irv, I talked to Irv quite extensively about him and Yes this week. There was some concerns with Yes. We'll talk about him further down the road. We'll talk about Yes down this list, but for now, Cavill Hanover, Irv just said, he doesn't think he has his shoeing completely correct yet and wants to tinker with him, but he was happy with him, as I was happy with him the other day. Cruising in Style, geez, had that run where he just had horrible posts. He's in to go Monday. You just need a run where you get post 2 to 5, just 2 or 3 starts in a row to get this horse back on track. Leaving 8 and 9 at Saratoga Racecourse, it may as well have left him in the kitchen or the bathroom on the concourse level. So not a great draw for him last 2 or 3 starts, but hopefully we'll see him coming back around. Don't believe me, just watch the horse again. We're keeping tight. I don't know how fast Harry trained him the other day. Probably due for a pretty good tightener, even at the farm. Farm's been in good shape, the track, they said, so probably this week should probably train him in 2 minutes or so. I'm going to make sure that every horse in our care, now from today, we have 3 to 4 weeks to have them ready. I want to make sure that every horse that is at the training center, Tamiko Training Center, is ready to go for May 26th. Not June 1st, not June 15th, ready to be entered on May 26th if they're racing. So that will be and it will be more of a forceful request for the trainers in Ontario. We will work with the hypothesis that we're racing on May 26th. I want the stable.ca owned horses ready to go May 26th. So, month out, get lots of warning. Where are we at now? Globetrotting continues to train down. I keep telling Jason, on the right line a little bit the other day. She'll do that from time to time, depending on the time of the month. As I said to Jason, there is zero rush for my partners in Globetrotting. You know my feeling about Globetrotting. There is no rush with her. If she's ready in June, I'd be just as happy. So, Globetrotting, getting close, getting ready here in Ontario. Miss Brampton Beast entered in the sale, and one of our clients said, listen, you were offered 9,000 Canadian, and in fairness, if push came to shove and we had to, I would have sold it for that. And one of our clients said, hey, I'll buy the shares of Miss Brampton Beast up at 90 Canadian plus HST, which she did, for everybody that had asked so far, which means good. Anytime we can solve this stuff in-house, it's always much better for us, right? Then it stops. What's wrong? Hi! Oh, the meows are everywhere? Addie loves cats. Anytime we can solve this stuff in-house, it's always better for me, right? It erases the animosity people may have towards selling, and at the same time, it allows the people that would have wanted to sell a way out, which is great. If we could do this every time, that would be fantastic. But for now, we got it done last week with Don't Believe Me, Just Watch, in the very same manner that we're offering to get it done with Miss Brampton Beast. So for our client, I want to name names for a client that stepped up. Thank you very much. It makes my job a lot easier. Oso Pine is racing tight. I had some people saying, well, Billy Davis, why is he driving Oso Pine when you're there? Because he's been driving him. Billy's got a family also. He's trying to make a living. And if he was out there and the horse wasn't racing good, well, then that would be different. Oso Pine's racing great. Billy's driving him great. Same goes for Frilly Fringes on Tuesday. I do have my family here, too. I'd like to get this house set up, be able to take a breath with my wife. How was he? There you go.
Put a 28 flat on the end.
Good. There's one of the guys that rides for us, Tim. Him and his girlfriend Lauren work for us, and asked me to go with his horse next week. Good looking horse. So Oso Pine and Billy will get along just fine tonight, and I'm sure he'll get along great with Frilly Fringes on Tuesday. Path of Totality's getting close. She's starting to look good too. Jason has her looking really, really good. Put a few pounds on her. Travis Henry trained her yesterday. Right before we went with all the babies, Travis went with her. Said she was good. He went a mile in 2:14. I trained her a mile and a half twice when I was here the last 2 weeks. Probably put her in the race bike next week and go a mile in 2:06. And then we'll see how she is. She's not far off. She's starting to look real, real good. Spend That Money is in Ontario. I told everybody, no qualms here. I think the class for Spend That Money is in Ontario. We're going to take some time to bulk her up a little bit, put a little weight on her, sharpen her up, and I think that's a great class for her, both at Grand River and Georgian Downs all year. No need to move Spend That Money anywhere at all. Spirit of Dio jumped on her foot, Mr. Qualifier, therefore Mr. Stake Race, but they believe the foot is healing up really, really well, and she'll be back in to qualify, probably not this week, but next week. Stonebridge Simba is right here with Jason now. Starting to look good. You know, it's going to take a month to get him ready, but he's starting to look good in the barn. Timo Houdini was great on Friday. Jenny and Kevin do a great job there in Michigan, and Timo Houdini raced well. I think Art McElmary drove him. He's been driving forever. Art was driving, when I was a kid, when I was working as a groom, and he you know, he was an older gentleman then. So, I mean, doing a great job, and definitely did a great job with Timo Houdini the other night. West 52nd is training down. Should be ready soon in Delaware to race in Harrington for Jim King Jr. White Tiger. Now, here's a little something. White Tiger made a break in his qualifier at Northfield, so we put him in to qualify at the Meadows, and I went there to made a few shoe-in changes. Never too old to make have a few shoe-in changes. So White Tiger had a few shoe-in changes made. We qualified him. He was good. Line was good. Felt strong, but still didn't feel perfect. Scoped him, bled. Didn't have a good run on Lasix last time. Now, you put a horse on Lasix in Ontario, it has to stay on for 100 days, but you do not in Pennsylvania. So I think we can put him on Lasix for a little bit with a little more confidence this time. So we'll race him on Lasix and see how he is. That wasn't just the only thing. He showed old tie-up, which could have been why he made a break here. His muscle count was still at 1,000, which is over twice what it should be. And that horse as well, Glariam always hovers around 800 or 900. So you're not talking about an astronomical number. Every horse is different, and every horse reacts very, very differently to those muscle counts. So White Tiger's muscle count was high. He bled. Most importantly and concerning, his liver count jumped again. So when it jumped the first time when he was in Pennsylvania, I believe he was on Lasix, and we blamed Lasix for that. He didn't have Lasix the other day, and it jumped up pretty good. So Tim and the vet are working to flush it out and get it down. The count was high, and it's not going to come down in a week. He is going to race next week. We'll gauge how he can race. We're going to be very, very careful, one, with his diet, and two, what we're doing to combat that liver problem. And this isn't, I was looking through Facebook the other day, and I saw Casey Coleman put a thing on any remedies to get a white count down. Ava, I don't want to look at that. Go.
What is it?
Go. Ava's picking up friggin' birds and stuff off the ground. My God. White Tiger, we're gonna do what we can to combat all his problems. Now, it's good that he had multiple problems, because I wasn't super pumped. I was very angry when he made a break at Northfield, and I was happy with him at the Meadows, but still didn't feel comfortable. You can just feel like when a horse is on his game, there's a very fluid action. Now she's picking up cats. She's looking to get her face scratched off. Okay. So, White Tiger has a few issues we need to combat, and we will get them all under control. And then, obviously, last, certainly not least, is Yes. A break in his last, and then 3 wins in a row coming into that start. I think Yes will be fine. I had a very long conversation about Yes. Irv loves the horse, wants to make sure he's at 100% when he races, and is working towards that. So looking likely for a qualifier this week with Yes, and then get him back racing. So it was a little bit sick. I know Irv was, he said, geez, he's off that left hind still. That's where he got hurt. So we were obviously worried about that, but it was fine. That looked at it and said it was fine. And as I said to Irv, ever since he was a 2-year-old, since he was a baby, he's always been over on the right shaft a bit. So it isn't that ligament that he did injure last year. Not necessarily yet, although you have to look every time when it is. But he always carries his ass over a little bit to the right side. I thought it was a stifle when he was young. He seemed to respond well when we did it. So I know Irv is just making sure that he doesn't hurt Yes, because he knows, same as I know, there's lots of money to be made with Yes and lots of wins ahead of this horse. Just need to treat him right. So for the people out there that are a little upset because they're not getting all the information they want, I get it. I understand. And it's not like Irv's an easy guy to get a hold of. When I text him, he usually texts back. He's got a big burn also. So you guys are used to this. You're used to the videos. You're used to Anthony always being around, answering your questions, showing you what's going on. And you don't always get that with other people, but that doesn't mean that they're not working their butts off and trying their hardest to make sure that the horses are all right. So regardless, if you're not getting the information you need on the horses, that's still on me. It's up to me to get that information, drag it out of our trainers, and disseminate that to you. If you're not getting it, it's on me, not them. So that is the Racehorse Barn. Very, very happy with what I've seen here. The news coming out of Ontario. Now, when you see the read between the lines, the politicians have no idea anyway. So when you look at all the news that's coming in, you see all the numbers plateau at 4,500 cases per day in Ontario, with the ICU cases rising. Now you see those numbers starting to come down. The ICU numbers are still a little slower, but they'll come. And I think maybe after the first week of May, you're going to see those numbers start sliding back into the 2,900s. Again, I'm not a scientist. I'm just going historically by what happened last time. And then when you start to see them get down around the thousands, that's when you're going to see Ontario start to open up. I suspect it's realistic to think that it's going to be the third week in May 20th till the end of the month, in which case it makes little sense in taking the no free lunches, the Brilliant Corners, and those horses out of Ontario. But War We Welcome's coming. She's going to qualify on Thursday. So that's your racehorses. I'm going to be talking to you very soon. Still got lots to talk about. Be back in just a minute.